Welcome to It Depends, a sales tax podcast by TaxConnex. I'm your host, Brian Greer. Sales and use tax can be confusing and very overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. Whether you work in industry or at a CPA firm, or just someone who wants to stay informed about the latest sales tax laws, we've got you covered. Periodically, we'll explore different aspects of sales tax. So whether you're a tax pro or a novice, tune in and join us as we attempt to simplify the complexity of the sales tax world. This is It Depends, because with sales tax, there's rarely just one answer, and often that's our answer to many questions. It just depends. So it depends usually focuses on educational topics like sales tax nexus or exemption certificate management as an example. But today's going to be a little bit different than normal. I'm going to talk a little bit about TaxConnex and also talk about our new product, taxC, which is powered by CereTax. And then I'm also going to introduce you guys to Brent Reeves at CereTax, one of our key partners and kind of the engine behind the taxC product as well. So if I start and really talk about TaxConnex, I generally start with a little bit of history and background, and it kind of ties into the whole CereTax relationship as well. But I'm going to go all the way back into the late 90s. And there was a company, Tax Partners, and that business was started by Robert Dumas, who is the founder and CEO here at TaxConnex. And the other person that founded that Tax Partners business was Mike Sanders. And Mike is a co-founder along with Brent at CereTax. So that business was originally focused on providing a sales tax compliance outsourcing solution, with Robert being kind of the accounting guy and Mike being more of the technology guy. That business grew over a period of time. Personally, I started working at Tax Partners right around 2001. It was eventually purchased by Thomson Reuters in 2005. And at that point, Mike and Robert's paths kind of diverged a little bit, and now we're coming back together again. But specifically, Robert started TaxConnex then in 2006, initially just focused on sales tax consulting activities. But as non-competes expired with TR, started to get back into the compliance outsourcing services business again. Personally, I stayed at TR until about 2010 when I joined Robert back here at TaxConnex then. Now, Mike's path kind of merged in with Brent at some point, and I'll let you, Brent, kind of tell that story of your background, how you got into sales tax, and what you're doing at CereTax now.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So that was 2009, actually, when Mike and I kind of came together to form SureTax. Like you said, Robert and Mike were co-founders of Tax Partners, and really it was just kind of their skill sets that caused them to kind of diverge paths. As you mentioned, it's just, obviously Robert is very, very attuned to the needs of the compliance side, where you're talking about all the accounting rules and things of that nature, and Mike was really, like you mentioned, the technology arm, and so it was just kind of a venture to go, okay, Mike and I wanted to take the technology side of it and stay out of, quite frankly, the services side of it, which you guys do so well. So that's kind of where that went, and we worked together, obviously for a number of years with SureTax and TaxConnex until we exited that in 2000. I think it was 2015 when we sold that to Wolters Kluwer, which it's still their premier engine, their indirect tax engine. So that was kind of the impetus for it. So my experience in the tax space goes back now, I guess 16 years now, and so we're really excited to kind of merge paths again, so to speak. Not that we were ever really separated all that too much, but more in a formal way to bring the two parties together because quite frankly the need is for that end-to-end solution where you've got the technology, but then you also have the white glove service that you guys offer to your clients. So yeah, that's kind of I guess a brief story.
Yeah, and Brent, when did you and Mike kind of part ways on the Wolters Kluwer side then and start CereTax?
Well, so we sold to Wolters Kluwer in 2015, and our intent was to be there, quite frankly, forever. They're obviously a very, very large company. We were really excited about the leadership that had brought us in, had a lot of, big visions. Unfortunately, kind of like you see with most acquisitions when, you're a small kind of nimble SaaS and you get gobbled up by a publicly traded company. We were probably ignorant for thinking that we were going to be the one that was different. But the leadership team that was there at the time, really, like I said, we thought a lot of them, Heffy Provost and Teresa, and I mean they were great folks. Unfortunately, about a year after us being there, both of them left Wolters Kluwer. Not necessarily by choice, and both, by the way, have moved on to tremendous careers. So they were, really great people. But that kind of just left us exposed more to the the bureaucracy that you get in those massive companies. So it just wasn't a fit for us. We were, we were kind of just used to being really, again, nimble, to use a cliche, but nimble and customer service, kind of very, very responsive and having those personal relationships with our customers, much like you guys do at TaxConnex today. And that it just was obvious that it wasn't going to happen at Wolters Kluwer. So we left there. And much like you, our non-competes ran out, and we started getting conversations with a lot of our ex-clients as well as people we worked with as well, saying, hey, you guys ever going to come back? Because we really enjoyed working with you. And that's kind of what prompted the I guess, re-entry to the space.
Yeah, that all makes sense. And it's interesting to hear you describe it because I didn't realize, I'm sure if I thought back, I'd remember the fact that we've been working together for 15 years. But hearing you say that, it's like, wow, I guess we really have been working together for quite a while.
It's been a bit. Yeah, it's been a bit.
So then, where we are or were, let's say as a business, here specifically at TaxConnex and, delivering really a advisory service for sales tax purposes, so helping companies understand, what their requirements are from a sales tax perspective, and then also focusing on this compliance outsourcing piece of it, really the return preparation and filing. We had a gap in the middle, right, in terms of, well, how do people get the actual tax on the invoice? Big part of sales tax, right? So that's a reason for us to come together. I mean, that's why we worked together for the last 15 years. It was really to try to plug that gap from a tax calculation perspective. And that just evolved over time. And then, within the last year, we said on our side, we really want a product to go to market with. So we're great at services. We had this gap from a tax automation, tax calculation perspective. Who better to team up with than you, Brent, and CereTax, just because of that long history that we've had together and in the shared philosophies of taking care of the customer and being that nimble organization. Of course, we experienced some of that frustration that you shared when we were purchased by TR. Again, another great company, but just the difference of working with a smaller entrepreneurial company, I find fascinating. But so at any rate, we come at this from
it's a matter of culture, sameness of culture and difference of culture. And what I mean by that is the sameness of culture being, how you respond to your customer, right? And then the difference of culture being what you focus on, what you excel at. So, we've always focused on the technology end and excelling at that, right? And I think that what happens a lot of times in these larger companies that try to kind of do it all is the cultures don't necessarily mix because on one side, yeah, you can both share the same desire to fulfill the needs of the customer, but what it takes to fulfill the needs on the technology side and what it takes on the services side are very, very different. And we rely on you heavily for the things that your customers need on the technology side, but implementing that really there should kind of be a line right there. And I think that's why we're so good together is because there is that line. So if it is a technology need, we're really quick to respond to it, right? Because that's what we know and that's what we focus on. And the same thing like when it's a services need and not just even like it's services because it's people, right? It's also services because there's a different type of expectation. There's that knowledge base that has to happen, that communication with the customer that's long, right? I mean, it's not okay, how quick can I fill this ticket? It's I'm going to get on and fill this ticket, but I'm going to fill it by having a long conversation with this person so I can really understand what that need is. And sometimes, those can clash if you try to do it as one big your family, because then you've got a technology person who really needs to be moving quick, right? They've got to say, oh, shoot, this is not working in the sandbox right now. How do I fix it really, really quick? And if the same kind of support person is also feeling that question about, hey, I really don't understand why this is the way it is, and what should I do about this, and why should I do that? Those can kind of sometimes conflict, and then you end up getting either where tickets get lost, which happens, quite frankly. I mean, that's the biggest complaint we get within our, from our people come over from competitors. Their complaints with the competitors is where it's like, okay, the ticket just goes into one big hopper, and whether or not it's a services expertise or a knowledge-based expertise or technology expertise or even a notices expertise, it all goes into one big hopper, and it just kind of gets hot potatoed around, which causes, significant delays. So I think kind of having that together, but separate, really enhances the customer experience.
Yeah, it's a good point, and in a couple of items to kind of I guess piggyback off of that, and the value I think of having the technology and the services separated but still coming together into this taxC product is that those technology and service businesses, quite frankly, they're run differently. There's different metrics of success in terms of gross margins and net margins, and it's hard to do both well as a business. Another piece of this is there's so many companies that we compete against that view this entire sales tax equation, the sales tax process, as something that can be fully automated. It's 100% technology solution. It's lacking the personal touch. It's lacking the service element. And we know from the 15 years, the 25 years plus of experience doing this, you can't automate everything. Each client has something that's different and unique about their business, and they need that personal human intervention, at least at some time. And one of the things that we try to do, and I shouldn't even say try, but one of the things that we do is we pair each of our clients with a dedicated practitioner. So now if you've got a sales tax question, I don't care if it's related to the tax calculation, if it's related to Nexus, you've got one person to at least go to and say, hey, can you help me with this? And that person will be able to pull in the right resources to get the question answered. And you don't have these tickets that like you were referring to, Brent, that kind of go into this black hole and nothing ever happens with them, and it just breeds frustration and issues over time.
Yeah, you mentioned two things there. One is that you can't automate everything. We always say this, like you can if you're kind of simple, right? It's the difference between like a 1040 EZ and someone who has even the basic itemized deductions, right? Could you get through it with TurboTax? Potentially, right? But I don't know anybody who feels like if they've got kind of I don't even want to call it complex, but more than just a basic tax returns to do, even on their, like I said, just like on their income tax. I mean, I don't know how many of them feel like, they don't benefit from having someone at their accounting firm to go, oh, well, what about this? Or what about that? Or someone going, hey, have you ever thought about this or that? Or, hey, you have kids that are getting of age, how are you going to do college? How's that going to, impact your tax returns and things like that? And that's where you guys, like I said, come in. So it's twofold. It's, yeah, I'm sure if you're a very, very simple business, you can just go automation. But if you really want to kind of know how to best prepare your business for growth, I don't see there's any way around. And maybe there's a way around it. Maybe a better way to say it is you just why do you do that to save a few bucks as opposed to having someone there that's a professional that you can ask questions. And the second thing about your the way you do it with your practitioners, you're the only ones that do that. And that's a huge thing. It's like even a lot of the vendors in the space that do a great job. You're the only one that I know of that does it as a full kind of like outsource with a true practitioner that knows, again, that's licensed and knows the space to do it. So I think that's a huge bonus to anybody.
Yeah, it's good to hear that, and we've always believed that was a kind of at least some of the secret sauce that we have here in terms of that direct practitioner, that direct access to that individual, and something that you mentioned kind of I think helps segue into who's a good what's a good company who would use this taxC product and what we're kind of doing together from a tax automation and service perspective. And you kind of shied away from the complex business. I tend to say it is for a complex business, but then how do you define that? A lot of different ways to define it, but we're typically seeing the most value in our solution coming from businesses that are in at least 10 or more states. So, if you're operating in one or two states, probably not going to get the value out of our solution. There's some edge cases that maybe you're a telecommunications company in California where it's super complicated and there's a ton of returns where it makes sense. But most of our clients are going to fit into that 10 or more states. We tend to target a few industries, although we can serve all industries. I mentioned telecommunications, software is another big industry, manufacturing, leasing companies.
Manufacturing, yeah, because I think manufacturing is one of those edge cases, right? Because you could be a manufacturer only be in a few states, but perhaps use tax comes into play, or sometimes, like matter of fact, like we're signing one now that manufacturers, but then also they sell, but also lease their end product that they manufacture, and then they have like several different entities within the company. So if you want to lease, then the manufacturer will manufacture it. They'll sell it to the leasing company that is actually, a subsidiary, so to speak. And that leasing company will then lease it. They're all in NetSuite, by the way. They're all in, One World NetSuite. But, something like that is a great, edge case where I think they need you to, not to interrupt you, but yeah, I mean, the 10 or so states, what we see too, though, is it's not really around like size. I mean, everybody always thinks like, oh, the higher revenue you are. It's really more about like, A, where do you think you're going, right? So, whatever your revenue is today, what do you expect it to be tomorrow? What do you want it to be? And then again, what is the complexity of what you're doing? Or do you have multiple entities? Do you file under multiple things? Do you have, subsidiaries or affiliates? Do you have distribution channels? Do you have, things like that? So,
yeah, I'm sure. I know we've both seen those scenarios where, yeah, someone's in two states today, but something has triggered their mind that they know they should be in 20 states, kind of like you're saying, that they know they're going in this specific direction, that it's becoming more challenging and difficult for them to manage. Last topic I wanted to hit on, and this is something that we've tried to do, and I know you're doing it on your side as well. But together, we're working with CPA firms, and CPA firms are often in this mode of the trusted advisor, and their customers are coming to them and asking questions. Well, what should I do for sales tax? Who should I work with? And those CPA firms make recommendations. And if you're one of those firms that maybe you've made some recommendations in the past and your clients have not necessarily been happy with the service and the overall experience that other company may have provided, hey, we're a great option for you, and we'd love to be able to partner with you and provide a automated solution, but also have that human capital, human oversight associated with it as well.
Yeah, and now that it's an end-to-end solution from one contract, it is a kind of a combined solution that because like the automation feeds directly into your reporting and your compliance, right? I mean, you have those reports that are in your format so that it feeds directly into your workflows, so that it's not, okay, yes,
there's not a separation. There's a connection.
Yeah, there's a connection. So even though that way, it doesn't, even though again it's under the same brand, it goes beyond just being under one contract. It's really truly a combined offering, because the automation feeds directly into the compliance process, which feeds directly into the relational part of the whole organization. You have access to the data. You see the data. The customer sees the data. Your practitioner sees the data. If there's anything that's funky between the two, processes, you're there to, it ahead of time. It's not like, oh, well, let me submit a support ticket with CereTax. I'm not sure why this data is wrong. You're working in it every day. Because that has been kind of the gap in the marketplace. And even, quite frankly, with CPA firms who do some of this advisory services, like, I don't have anybody really to send just, the automation piece to, and then the returns piece. Now, if they're working with you, you've got the automation piece. We have the integrations with, the Microsoft products and NetSuite and WooCommerce and NopCommerce and BigCommerce. We have those e-commerce platforms. We also have the API driven solutions, right? So where if you have your homegrown solution, you can integrate directly with their API, and then have that all under one umbrella. So yeah, they needed both. And, and it was kind of tough sometimes to say, okay, well, I'll refer the automation piece to Avalara because they're the only ones that have it. And then I'll refer the compliance piece over to TaxConnex. That becomes really difficult sometimes for a CPA to do, right? And then also, as they're referring it out, it doesn't matter how much you always put disclaimers on it. If you refer it out, you have a certain level of, at least even if they don't hold you accountable, you personally feel accountable, right? Because it's like, hey, I gave you those names.
Sure.
Right. So, I think a lot of times they would refer it out to, Avalara and just kind of maybe grit their teeth and hope. And then they refer you the compliance side. No, you're going to take care of them. Well, now you got both. Right. So now you can offer both, and they only have to send them to Brian. Right. And they don't have to worry about, maintaining 2-3 relationships. And I think that's going to be great for CPAs also within your network.
Part of what we're talking about here is this taxC product, and you might be asking and thinking, well, what the heck is that? What are we really talking about here? So what we've done is that we've really combined forces here in terms of the tax automation and the tax determination, the tax engine from CereTax, and we've paired that with what we're really good at here, which is providing the services, and specifically the return preparation, filing, remittance of the payment, managing notices, and we've kind of combined those into this taxC product. So what you get is an integrated solution that combines the tax technology with reports and data that feed directly into our tax return preparation software. So you get this integrated solution, but you get it under one umbrella, one contract, one organization to support you. Come to us with questions on any aspect of what's happening from a sales tax perspective. Brent, appreciate you joining us here today. If you are interested in learning more about TaxConnex, about CereTax, and about our combined taxC product, you can find that at taxconnex.com/taxC. So thanks for joining us, and look forward to catching up with you guys again.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian.
This has been It Depends, with another episode explaining the complexities surrounding sales and use tax. We'll see you next time.